Hi, welcome to moneyness.biz, your home for personal finance. Today, I'm going to show you how to make a mortgage calculator with extra payments. This is something that I've been using myself for years. I've always found it useful, and I want to share it with you. You might think that building a mortgage calculator in a spreadsheet sounds really complicated. Trust me, this is not rocket science. If you know how to use a spreadsheet just a little bit, we can build this together. You might be thinking, there are a ton of mortgage calculators out there on the internet. Well, why is this one special? This one is special first because some of those mortgage calculators out there don't get things right. For example, when I search YouTube for mortgage calculator, the first thing that comes up, or one of the first things, is a video from 2008, and it gets the interest payments wrong. I have been using mortgage calculators like this for almost 20 years, both personally and professionally. I'm going to show you how to do it right. I'm going to show you at the end of this video the trick that I use to take this mortgage calculator and match the amortization schedule in my personal mortgage to the penny. And I challenge you, once you've built this, to match it up against the amortization schedule in your mortgage docs and leave me a comment. Let me know whether you can match to the penny or not. Another interesting feature of this calculator is that it handles extra payments. So for example, if you're 6 months into the mortgage and you make an extra $1,000 payment, you might wonder, how much will my total interest shrink? Or what's my new mortgage payoff date? Now you'll have a tool to be able to answer that. One word of warning first, this is for fixed rate mortgages only. If you have an adjustable rate mortgage, they look a little different. Now, having said all that, let's build this. Alrighty, here's the beginning of our mortgage calculator. Cells that are in yellow are things that can change from loan to loan, so you'll put your individual information in there. The other cells are formulas. I'm going to show you how to do those. Let's say we start out with a $300,000 loan, which has a rate of 3.5%. I put that in decimals. And a term, the term means how long does the mortgage last, a term of 30 years. Let's just go through, do a little formatting to make it pretty. $300,000 in decimals, the rate in percent, and show 2 decimal places. Here's our first calculation, which is the term, which is equal to the term in years above times 12. Now we have our monthly payment, and we're going to use the PMT function. First thing the PMT function wants is the rate. Now that rate is an annual rate, but we want a monthly payment. So we're going to divide that rate by 12. Be very, very careful. This works for US mortgages. I don't know if it works for mortgages outside the US. And I know there are other types of loans where the compounding works differently and you can't just divide by 12. So again, be careful. This works for US mortgages. I can't guarantee it for anything else. The next thing we need is the number of periods, which is the number of months. Finally, we need the loan amount. There is our monthly payment. Now you can check that monthly payment against other mortgage calculators. Make sure they agree. The monthly payment here is negative because we have money, $300,000 coming in, and so our monthly payment goes out, and it's negative. But for our purposes, that needs to be a positive number, and so I'm just going to put a minus sign in there. Now that we have our monthly payment, let's hit the $sign, format that so it looks pretty. Now we are going to fill in the next 2 rows by hand. After that, everything is the same, so we will select and drag down, and that will finish off our mortgage amortization schedule. For this first cell, we need the first mortgage payment due date. So let's call that October 1st, 2020. The beginning balance is the same as the loan amount. The payment is equal to the monthly payment, but we're going to use the $signs to make that an absolute reference. So when we drag things, it still points to that B6 monthly payment cell. The interest is the beginning balance times the interest rate. Again, that's an absolute interest rate. And again, our interest rate up on B3 is annual, and we want monthly, so we divide by 12. Now, we have a payment. It's composed of principal and interest. We know the payment, we know the interest, so the principal must be the payment minus the interest. Here we have a spot for extra payments. Let's not worry about that yet. Once we fill in the whole amortization schedule, then we will come back and play with the extra payments. Our ending balance is our beginning balance minus the principal that we paid minus the extra payment. We have 3 more columns on the right here. This is the first month of the mortgage, so we'll put in a 1. We've only made 1 payment so far, so total interest is equal to that interest payment that we made. Similarly, total principal is equal to the principal payment that we made plus any extra payments. We're in good shape so far. For the next row, payment due date, we're going to use the eDate function to say the next payment due date is the previous payment due date and go up 1 month. Now that is a very funny looking set of numbers. So I'm going to right click and say Format Cells and say Date and say OK. That's a more reasonable looking date. Our beginning balance is last month's ending balance. Our payment here, we're going to use the min function. So it is the minimum of the beginning balance plus this month's interest, or the regular monthly payment. And the regular monthly payment gets the dollar signs. The reason we do this is so that if we make an extra payment, it's possible that our beginning balance in the last month could get very small. And if we don't use the min function, we could make too big of a payment. Our monthly payment might be bigger than what's due. So if we use the min function, it helps account for those extra payments. The interest and the principal are calculated the same way as above, so I'll select and drag those down, and I'll do the same thing with the end balance. The month is just the month above plus 1. The total interest is equal to our total interest from last month plus the interest we paid this month. And our total principal is equal to the total principal from last month plus the principal we paid this month plus any extra payments. Before I drag everything down, I'm going to do a little freeze panes here so that we don't lose track of our column headings. Now, let me select row 10, and I will just drag it down to row 368. Boom! Okay, you can see our total principal paid over here, $300,000, matches the loan amount. Now, let us make some cells that keep track of things. Total principal, and total principal is equal to the maximum of the total principal column. We're going to use that to check, just to make sure each time we make a change, our total principal paid is the same as loan amount. Let's also keep track of total interest. And again, we will make that the maximum of whatever we find in the total interest column. And one more thing, if we mess around with this loan, if we're going to change some numbers, let's keep track of what our interest payment is with the original setup. So we will make a row here called original interest, and I'm going to copy and paste a value and format that value. Okay, this is a pretty reasonable mortgage calculator. It should match up well with the good mortgage calculators on the web, and we can use it to do things like say, if my note rate was 3.25 instead of 3.5, so 0.0325, my new total interest payments would be around $170,000. So I would save almost $15,000 over the life of the loan by having a lower interest rate. let's go back to 3.5. What if I got a 20-year loan instead of a 30-year loan? Now you can see at the end of our spreadsheet down here, everything's at 0 because it's not a 30-year loan anymore, so we don't have to go this far out, and it should end right around month 240. If we have a 20-year loan, our total interest payments are the original minus the total. Our total interest payments are almost $67,000 lower. Let's go back. Let's reset things. We can see that our mortgage calculator is working right now. Now, I promised you a mortgage calculator with extra payments. So let's go back up to the very beginning. If we were to make an extra payment, let's say after a year, we pay an extra $1,000. That will save us $1,751. Now, the principal hasn't changed, right? So we didn't make any extra principal payments over the life of the loan. We just paid some principal early, and it saved us $1,750. If instead we made that extra principal payment, let's say right in the middle of the loan, around month 180, now we only save $688. When you make the principal payment early, like we did before, you can see how that reduces the ending balance, which means the beginning balance next period is lower, which means that the amount of interest that you pay that period is lower, which means more goes to principal, and that's why you save so much money. Here is a mortgage calculator with extra payments, and this is pretty good, but I promised you a trick that let me match up this mortgage calculator to my actual mortgage documents. So here's the trick. Take a look at this monthly payment. If we look out a couple more digits, you can see that we are paying fractions of a penny. But in the real world, you can't pay a fraction of a penny. So what we need to do is round this. And I'm going to use the round function. And I'm going to say round that payment to 2 decimal places. Now you can see that the monthly payment is only to the penny. We need to do this for the interest payment as well. So let us take that interest payment and round it again to 2 decimal places. And we will just drag that on down. Now this, with the rounding, matches my mortgage documents to the penny. One interesting thing that happened, though, is that our total principal is now not equal to our loan amount. This means that our last payment didn't fully pay off our mortgage. We have to pay an extra $2.71. Now, we could make a complicated Excel formula to do that, but just to be simple, let's add it in manually and say plus 271. Now our principal matches. You could say, with some justification, I thought this was a fixed rate mortgage. I thought my payment was going to be constant over the life of the loan. In my mortgage docs, the last payment is just a little different from all the other payments, and it's because of this rounding. Let's try one more example. What if our mortgage was for $100,000? Now again, you can see that the total principal is off a little bit. So we need to get rid of that extra amount we put in before and change it manually. There we go. Everything works out. Let's wrap things up. I hope you learned 3 things today. First, how to make a mortgage calculator. Second, how to use it to look at different loans. And third, how to measure the impact of making an early or an extra payment. As I said before, if you have a mortgage, please take your mortgage docs and match it up against the calculator. Leave a comment saying whether they match to the penny or not. Thank you so much for watching. Please hit like and subscribe and the bell, and I'll see you next time.